Hey, folks, welcome back to The Question, Part 3, if you're watching on the YouTube stream. This is a blog talk radio conversation called The Question, which is a radio program, but on every weekday from Monday through Friday, at least until we kick into the summer schedule in a week or so. Every weekday, we're joined by a co-host for the second half of the show, and today we'll be joined by Steve Scherber, where we talk about home remodeling, home repair, and maybe the entire home industry. But before that, in the remaining part of this show, we talk about things going on in the news, and there's a whole bunch of law-related issues going on in the news. They convicted those 5 folks who apparently wanted to blow up the Sears Tower. You know, the United States attorneys sometimes have a very difficult time prosecuting people who want to do terrorist activities. It's unbelievable. It has taken them like 5 years to try to do this, and they only convicted 4 out of 5 of these guys. It just, you know, you'd like to think terrorism doesn't pay, but I don't know, it makes you wonder sometimes. Hey, and the feds are really at it again. The feds are rapping General Mills on the hand for saying that their Cheerios can lower your cholesterol. It's good for your heart. The FDA is saying that only drugs can make the claim that it can lower your cholesterol, and Cheerios has to stop making that claim. Now, here's what's interesting. Just the other day, I was playing golf with a friend of mine who's a big shot over there, a really big shot over there at General Mills, and I made a little crack about this, and he said something about Cheerios reducing your he said Cheerios with a low-fat diet can reduce your cholesterol. And I said, well, come on, isn't the real effect of that just the low-fat diet? Like, you know? And he said you get twice as much lowering of your cholesterol when you combine Cheerios, because he said it's not just normal grains, it's specially, you know, jazzed up grains that they have going on over there.
It's got statin in it.
It's got something in it. It's got statin in it. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think that's a cholesterol reducing drug.
Does it really? Like it has
Lipitor.
a drug in it? It's not just breakfast cereal. It's also your drug of cholesterol lowering choice. But here's what I thought was interesting. I heard this story yesterday on the news. Going on and on about this, they then sort of said in passing, it's a big deal for Cheerios because they're doing quite well. In fact, last year, Cheerios sales, $1.6 billion. And all of a sudden, all the scale of bailouts and how much money gets spent on road projects or health and human services, Cheerios, just that one cereal, brings in $1.6 billion. It's just
one of the uses for Cheerios that I think is under talked about is kids' finger food.
Oh, I bet a lot of kids, they buy in those little bowls and those little one-packers.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of it comes from that.
Yeah.
Because they're perfect size.
Honey Nut Cheerios is my favorite cereal.
Honey Nut Cheerios. I don't even know if the $1.6 billion includes the Honey Nut Cheerios. What if it doesn't?
It's a shame.
But that Honey Nut Cheerios is pretty good.
Oh.
But nothing like Frosted Flakes.
They get a little soggy on you.
Gotta tell you, I was the Frosted Flakes?
Yeah.
Well, not if you eat them fast.
That's true.
Come on, that's the whole point. You got to eat those things before they're gone. But the feds are they're telling General Mills you got to knock it off. Well, here they have more work to do also. You know that airplane that fell out of the sky and crashed in Buffalo, New York back in February? You know, about every week I tell you about bank robberies and plane crashes. It's just enough to make a guy want to have a panic attack. Well, it turns out, listening to the transcript, I don't know why it takes them 4 months to get these transcripts out, but the pilots were chit-chatting while the plane fell below a reasonable speed and then got all shaky and then flipped over and crashed and 50 people were killed. They were chatting. They were talking about personal things.
So can we sue those pilots
Well, they're dead.
for being in the vicinity?
But their parents, maybe
Sue
their
their
parents
parents, that's
created
right.
a situation that was ripe for them being knuckleheads. And apparently, they have a rule that they call sacrosanct in the flying industry. And that is that pilots are prohibited from talking about anything unrelated to flying if their airplane is below 10,000 feet. Nothing else. And these guys are talking about what they did over the weekend. They were talking about their careers. They were gabbing. And the plane slowed down, got all shaky, gets crazy, and crashes. And these guys are jawing it up. I'm telling you, it's that guy who landed the plane in the river. He's always saying you can't go to these budget rate airplanes, and this is one of those one of those airlines that are these little continental connection flights, the little 50, 70 seater things, and apparently one of the pilots had not passed 4 times his FAA check flight tests. He had to take retests on all of them. And they're thinking that maybe the men also hadn't had adequate rest before their flights. One of the pilots had taken an overnight flight from Seattle before reporting to work the next morning. And another guy had logged into the airline computer system at 3 in the morning the day of the crash. These guys are up in the middle of the night, and they're flying planes, and then they're gabbing. I mean, it's just, I'm telling you, it's enough to make a guy freak out. So, in the law, there's been a lot going on, from marijuana to parents being liable for their kids, to Cheerios, to plane crashes. In our final 90 seconds, I want to remind you the fact that California's on fire again. How often does this happen? I mean,
They're hot.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like some guys using a weed whacker to clear the bush, and that thing starts a fire. And another guy eats a spicy hot dog and has a bowel movement, and it starts a fire. Another guy has a big belch, and it starts a fire. I mean, what doesn't start a 87,000 acre fire in Southern California? Good for the firemen who are out there saving people's houses, saving people's butts, because the place is a big cinder box.
It's a desert.
It's a desert. You're not supposed to live there. It's a desert, Santa Barbara. It is the Question, a Blog Talk Radio conversation about all things going on in the world and the news. And we'll be back in just a moment with Steve Scherber. Steve Scherber and I will talk about home remodeling, home repair, living in our houses, and the entire home industry. So if you're watching, listening on Blog Talk Radio, you may have to refresh your browser. Ustream, just keep watching. And on the videos, you'll have to hang in there with us for another minute. We'll be back in a minute with Steve Scherber.